I mean, what would you think about putting it in your garage?
Cody, how often are you going to wrestle?
If I did it
See, this is my
every day
point.
with Hunter, is that my garage?
I'm going
Are
to
you
talk.
telling me that's my garage?
Yeah,
All
I'm going to
his
talk.
garages-
An alone conversation, okay?
Janelle didn't want to believe what she was seeing. The pages had curled slightly in her hand from the heat of the printer, but her face went cold. At the top of the document, official letterhead, dated and watermarked, was a bold header, Platinum Elite Monthly Statement. But it wasn't the card name that made her heart drop. It was the name beneath it, Robyn Sullivan Brown. And right below that, in neat digital print, total balance due, $12,322.14. All for 1 month. 1 month of what? Janelle's eyes darted down the itemized list. Serenity Springs Spa, Sacred Ground Cryotherapy, Diamond Lotus Wellness, each name somehow more pretentious than the last, and beside them, price tags that could have paid for an entire semester of college or 6 months of groceries. For a moment, she actually thought it was a mistake. Maybe it was one of those spam mailers that just looked real. But as her fingers flipped through the packet, 4 full pages of charges, there was no denying the truth. This wasn't spam. This was Robyn's real card. And more importantly, this was coming from the family's shared financial account. The same account Cody had once stood in front of all the wives and promised would remain transparent and equitable. Janelle remembered that moment. His exact words had been, "Everything we do financially has to stay fair. We all contribute, we all have access." But standing in her kitchen now, holding 4 pages of spa invoices totaling more than what she and Christine spent combined in a year, Janelle realized she may have been lied to. According to one source close to the family, Janelle had been suspicious for weeks. Something wasn't adding up. She'd noticed the dwindling balance in the communal pot, watched money she thought was going toward home repairs or holiday flights suddenly vanish. But every time she asked for a breakdown, Cody brushed her off, claimed it was utilities, unexpected taxes, just life. But just life didn't include $750 for a sacred sound detox or $1,100 for ancient aromatherapy alignment. No, this was luxury, this was indulgence. And worst of all, this was being kept secret.
Oh, you're gonna blackmail me.
No, I'm not going to blackmail
You really do need to. We are springing this on her.
That's only fair.
Will, Christine pulls me aside and says, listen, if this mat's going into my house, then you're going to be a better husband. You're going to spend more time at my house. You know, more grocery money. I had to essentially kind of talk her into it.
Hey, Cody. Hey!
So Janelle did what any woman with 4 decades of life experience and a finely tuned betrayal radar would do. She hit record on her phone. Slowly, she began scrolling through the charges aloud, timestamping her voice as she read. June 14th, Serenity Springs, full body renewal with microdermabrasion add-on, $995. Her voice was calm, but you could hear the shift underneath, that quiet burning resolve, the kind that doesn't scream, but doesn't forget. What's more chilling is that the card wasn't even in Robyn's name alone. Attached to it per the statement was a secondary billing link to the Brown Family Expense Trust, a trust that as of last year still included Janelle, Christine, and Mary as technical signatories, which means depending on how the account was structured, they may have been unknowingly co-signing her spa splurges for years. Sources say Janelle only got wind of it after noticing a miscellaneous charge labeled Brown Admin Wellness that pinged during a trip to Costco. At first, she thought it was a clerical error, but one called to the bank's fraud department later, and she was passed awkwardly to a manager who recognized the name and suggested she speak directly to the primary cardholder. Janelle didn't scream. She didn't throw the papers. She simply grabbed her phone and walked into the living room, where Christine was sipping tea. "You might want to sit down," she said, flipping the packet open. And the moment Christine saw page 3, she gasped, "You need to see this." And that's when it got even messier. They say hindsight is 20/20, but for Janelle, the red flags were practically fluorescent in retrospect. The quiet way Cody would change the subject when she asked for a monthly breakdown, the vague expenses he cited anytime she questioned a drop in the family's shared account, and worst of all, the way Robyn always seemed untouched by the financial strain that had consumed everyone else. While Janelle was cutting corners, clipping coupons, and even borrowing from her adult children just to cover the basics, Robyn was breezing through life with fresh lashes, glowing skin, and a new stack of crystal bracelets every other week. It was subtle, but obvious once you looked closer. And now, with $12,000 in spa bills right there in black and white, the veil had finally lifted.
My name is on property with everybody else. Probably nobody will cooperate now and play ball. FF.
To understand just how deep this betrayal cuts, you have to go back a bit. When Christine left the marriage, it wasn't just emotional, it was financial. They'd all agreed begrudgingly to keep a portion of their income pooled in a communal account for the good of the family. That pot was supposed to be sacred. Bills, groceries, kids' school supplies, emergency medical, nothing frivolous. And Cody had promised full transparency. No secrets, no backdoor spending. But ever since Robyn entered the picture, that promise had started to wobble. At first, it was small things. New home upgrades, surprise Amazon orders, that mysterious babysitter who made more than some nurses. But this, $12,000 on spa services in 1 month? That wasn't wobble, that was collapse. Insiders claim Janelle had grown increasingly uncomfortable with the financial setup over the last year. One source said she started asking questions, not because she was paranoid, because she's practical. Janelle's always been the numbers wife, the planner, so when Christine popped by for what was supposed to be a casual tea, it turned into a full-blown audit. They spread the credit card statement across the kitchen island, grabbed a calculator, and started tallying. And what they found was absolutely staggering. Serenity Springs appeared 6 times, 3 visits in the same week. Another line item for a full moon chakra cleanse clocked in at $890. There was also a $775 lymphatic rebalancing, whatever that meant, and an additional $300 for therapeutic aura mist. Christine kept flipping pages, her eyebrows climbing higher with each entry. I mean, I've splurged on a pedicure now and then, she whispered, but this is a lifestyle. But it wasn't just the indulgence that stung, it was the deception. Because nowhere in those statements was the name Robyn Brown. No, it was R. Sullivan Brown, and the charges were being routed through an account labeled Household B. That's when Janelle remembered something Mary had mentioned in passing years ago. Robyn had convinced Cody to label her portion of expenses separately for tax reasons. At the time, it sounded like legal housekeeping, but now, it reeked of cover-up, and just when they thought they'd seen it all, Christine's phone buzzed. A text from someone who used to work front desk at Serenity Springs. Hey, you might want to ask about the VIP room charges. Not everything shows up on the main invoice. Christine read it out loud. Janelle froze. There's more? She whispered, and then without missing a beat, she grabbed her purse. We're going for a drive, she said. And where they went next. That's where everything blew wide open. It was the kind of spa you'd drive past 100 times and never know what really went on inside. Tucked between a gourmet pet bakery and an overpriced essential oils boutique, Serenity Springs had always looked quiet, peaceful, even. But when Janelle and Christine pulled into the gravel lot that afternoon, the air felt anything but calm. Janelle clutched the manila folder tighter in her lap as she stepped out of the car, her boots crunching against the stones. Christine adjusted her sunglasses, already scanning the entrance. Let's just ask about the charges, she whispered. But they both knew this wasn't just about receipts anymore. This was about truth and trust, and maybe finally answers. Inside, the lobby smelled like lavender and eucalyptus, and a soft flute track trickled from hidden speakers. A young receptionist smiled from behind the desk, until she saw the names on the statement Janelle pulled out. The smile faltered, her hands twitched, and then she offered a well-rehearsed, "Let me check with my manager." 5 minutes later, a woman in her 50s appeared, clipboard in hand and a corporate smile that never reached her eyes. "I'm sorry, but we don't discuss client transactions without prior consent," she said crisply. Janelle nodded. "We're not asking about any client. We're asking why your name is charging $12,000 a month to a family trust without notifying co-signers." Christine added, "We already have the paperwork. We're just trying to understand what isn't listed." And that's when the clipboard lady hesitated. Just a flicker, but it was enough.
I can't believe I'm 50 and I can't even do my own thing because I'm so tied up with them financially.
She asked them to wait, disappeared into the back, and returned holding a second invoice. "This is internal. It doesn't go out to clients," she said quietly, and what it showed made Christine's jaw literally drop. In addition to the original $12,000, there was a hidden tier of charges categorized as off-menu VIP services. These included things like private soul recalibration, $1,650, elder goddess immersion retreat, $2,100, and the most shocking, recurring VIP room hold, $800 weekly. Weekly? Janelle whispered. That alone added up to over $3,000 a month just to reserve a private room. On top of everything else, the manager quickly backtracked, insisting those rooms were often gifted or discounted for preferred clients, but couldn't explain why the Brown Family Trust was footing the full price. Christine snapped a photo of the internal invoice before they were politely but firmly asked to leave. By the time they got back into the car, neither woman spoke for several minutes. The wind rustled through the cracked windows. Finally, Christine broke the silence. She's been hiding this for how long? Janelle didn't answer right away. Her phone buzzed, another message from Mary, who had clearly heard through the grapevine that something big was happening. The message read, "Check your email. I just sent you something you're gonna want to see." Janelle opened it, scrolled, and nearly dropped the phone. It was a PDF attachment. The subject line? Trust Agreement Amendment. Robyn's signature added. There it was, plain as day. Dated last year, a scanned legal document showing that Cody had quietly added Robyn as the primary trustee of the Brown family expense fund without ever informing the others. Her name, her signature, her control. And suddenly, the spa charges weren't the full story. They were just the beginning. Because if Robyn had power over the trust, what else had she signed for? Janelle sat back in her seat, stunned silent. Christine turned to her, voice low. This isn't just money. This is manipulation. Janelle nodded. It's time we bring this out into the open. And just like that, the women who had once smiled politely at Robyn's excuses were now holding the receipts. And the next move? It would be very, very public. Back at Janelle's house, the kitchen island looked more like a crime scene than a family gathering spot. Sprawled across the marble countertop were not just spa invoices and card statements, but now legal paperwork, screen grabs of emails, and that haunting PDF with Robyn's signature stamped on the family trust amendment. Christine was on her second cup of coffee, pacing in socked feet, while Janelle sat with a yellow legal pad in front of her, jotting down numbers with surgical precision. The more they unraveled, the more it became clear. This wasn't just about monthly massages, this was a systemic siphoning of shared family money. And Robyn, for all her soft-spoken tears and quivering voice on camera, was allegedly sitting at the very center of it. Janelle knew what came next couldn't be a whisper. It had to be a statement, and that meant sending the documentation exactly where it couldn't be ignored to Cody, not just a casual text or phone call. No, this had to be unmistakable. She pulled out her phone, took a photo of the most damning document, the hidden spa invoice with off-menu charges, and texted it directly to Cody with no caption. Just the image. Let it speak for itself. Christine hovered over her shoulder as the message delivered, the little read checkmark appearing seconds later. No reply, just silence. That was around 2 in the afternoon. By 4:30, Cody called. Christine stepped into the other room while Janelle answered, setting the phone on speaker. What is this? Cody's voice came in hot. Not panicked, not apologetic, defensive. Where did you get that statement? You had no right. Janelle cut him off. I had every right. My name is still on that trust, Cody, and if you think hiding 5-figure spa charges under a wellness budget is going to go unnoticed, you really don't know me anymore. There was a long pause. Then came the deflection. It's not what you think. Robyn's been dealing with stress, chronic issues. She needs those treatments. And the billing. I didn't realize it was being pulled from the family pot. I'll look into it. But Janelle wasn't having it. Look into it. You're the trustee. You amended the trust and made her the primary signatory without even telling the rest of us. That's not all look into it. That's fraud, Cody. That's when the volume rose. Cody accused her of stirring up drama, of being manipulated by Christine, of trying to ruin what little harmony the family still had. It was classic Cody. Turn it around. Make it about his hurt feelings instead of the financial betrayal staring him in the face. Christine walked back in just in time to hear him say, if you want to talk, fine, but not like this, not over screenshots and rumors. And that was when Janelle made her move. I think it's time we sit down. All of us. Cameras included. Silence again. A different kind. He knew what that meant.
I believe that my sister wife's closet will be profitable. However, I don't think it's going to be profitable enough to support multiple people. I don't.
If Janelle brought this to TLC, it wouldn't just be a family squabble. It would be a storyline, a reckoning. And whether Robyn liked it or not, viewers would see the charges, the documents, the trail. Cody mumbled something unintelligible and hung up. Christine exhaled, so, what now? Janelle didn't miss a beat. We let them squirm for a bit. Then we scheduled a sit-down, because the truth is coming out with or without them. But what they didn't know yet was that Robyn wasn't about to sit quietly. In fact, she was already preparing a defense, and the next move in this high-stakes family fallout, it was coming faster than anyone expected. Robyn's response didn't come through words. It came through action. Less than 24 hours after Janelle's confrontation with Cody, a carefully curated message appeared on Robyn's private Instagram story, visible only to a select circle of followers. It was a boomerang clip of her sitting in a plush armchair, sipping herbal tea, wrapped in a silk robe, and beneath it just one line. Self-care isn't selfish. It's survival, paired with a cryptic sparkle emoji and a geotag that just so happened to be Serenity Springs. Christine caught it almost immediately. She's taunting us, she said, eyes narrowing. She wants us to know she's not backing down. But the real kicker wasn't the story. It was what came next. Janelle received a formal email, sent not from Cody or Robyn directly, but from a legal team. The message was icy, professional, and riddled with strategic vagueness. It stated that unauthorized access and dissemination of private financial documents could result in litigation for breach of fiduciary agreement and defamation of character. At the bottom, a cease and desist warning. Do not share any of the attached financial records publicly. It was classic intimidation, dressed up in legalese. But Janelle? She didn't flinch, because by that point, she already had allies. Christine had her back, of course. But what surprised Janelle were the calls and texts rolling in from extended family members, even a few of the older kids. Apparently, this wasn't the first time Robyn's spending had raised eyebrows. One daughter allegedly recalled overhearing her father, years ago, grumble about Robyn's spa addiction during a phone call with the accountant. A niece mentioned that Robyn once showed up to a family dinner late because she couldn't miss her aura sculpting session, whatever that even meant. These weren't just isolated splurges, this was a pattern. Insiders close to the family started whispering that Robyn had long used self-care as a shield, an untouchable excuse that Cody defended at every turn. Anytime someone asked why her closet was overflowing or why her skincare products cost more than a car payment, Cody would go on about how delicate she was, how much she carried, how much she gave. But when you stacked that narrative next to a $12,000 spa bill and a legal letter threatening silence, it didn't look like fragility. It looked like control. And Christine, who had once kept her opinions to herself to preserve peace, was now done tiptoeing. She told Janelle, "They think we'll shut up because we're afraid to look messy on TV, but I say bring the cameras in. Let people see what's really going on." The production crew, already aware something was brewing, allegedly began rescheduling interviews and scouting neutral locations. They knew the story had legs, and if Janelle was willing to go on record with statements, documents, and emotional truth, this could become one of the most explosive confrontations in Sister Wives history. Meanwhile, fans on Reddit and Instagram were putting the puzzle together. Old screen caps from episodes were being rewatched, captions dissected, timestamps matched. Viewers spotted background glimpses of high-end beauty products, spa brochures on Robyn's fridge, even a fleeting moment where a platinum envelope was tucked in her purse. "We thought we were imagining things," one fan wrote. "Turns out the clues were right in front of us." And just when the internet was catching fire, a familiar face came out of the woodwork with a story that could tip the scales even further. Mary. Of all the people Janelle expected to stay silent, Mary wasn't at the top of the list, but she wasn't at the bottom either. For years, Mary had occupied that uneasy space between loyalty and loneliness, caught in Cody's emotional no man's land, and rarely stepping into the fray, unless it involved her own name. But this time, Mary came out swinging. It started with a cryptic post on her business page, one of those vague empowerment quotes Mary loved to use, the kind fans usually brushed off. But this one hit different. Some people wear masks made of spa clay, but the truth always exfoliates through. It read, a wink in words. And when the comment section exploded with speculation, Mary didn't delete a thing. She let it simmer. Then, the real bomb dropped. An anonymous leak surfaced online, allegedly from someone close to Mary's Utah circle. The tip-off claimed Mary had quietly shared screenshots of group texts going back months, conversations where Robyn dismissed Janelle's financial concerns, insisted she was owed wellness care for mental preservation, and even implied that the trust fund wouldn't exist without my stability. If true, that meant Robyn wasn't just spending the family's money. She was justifying it as payment for emotional labor. Christine was livid. "We all gave emotional labor," she said. According to one insider, "Some of us just didn't bill the family for it like a therapy practice." Janelle, meanwhile, felt a grim kind of clarity. Everything she'd been feeling, dismissed, gaslit, siphoned dry, was being validated by Mary of all people. And if she was ready to pull back the curtain, things were about to spiral fast. As producers scrambled to coordinate on-camera sit-downs with each wife, TLC execs allegedly began floating a reconciliation episode concept, some hoped for return to peace. But behind the scenes, there was no peace in sight, especially after Cody, in a rare burst of rage, reportedly warned Christine that airing dirty laundry could put the family in serious legal jeopardy. That threat didn't land the way he thought it would. In fact, it only fueled the fire. Because what Cody didn't realize was that Christine had already sat down with a legal consultant just to make sure she and Janelle wouldn't be on the hook for any potential misuse of funds tied to the trust.
Cody and my money has always been separate up until Christine and Janelle chose and asked to be out of the family financially. I used to be not so great with money when I was young. I had hard knocks. And then I learned during my divorce really how to budget myself very, very well. You just must have had a different priority of where your money was gonna go than I did. That's all.
And according to that consultant, if Robyn was added as a trustee without full disclosure to the other members, there could be grounds for civil action. Not only that, anyone who knowingly benefited from misappropriated communal funds might be liable to repay them. That changed everything. What began as spa receipts and silent tensions had now crossed into potential legal warfare. And with TLC rolling cameras and the fanbase rabid for the truth, there was no backing down. Not anymore. Especially when Robyn finally broke her public silence with a sit-down of her own. A clip from the taping was leaked, her sitting across from producers, dabbing her eyes with tissue, saying softly, "I've never stolen anything from anyone. I'm just trying to survive in this family." But off camera, sources claim she was far less delicate, because what no one saw yet was that Robyn had a plan of her own, one that involved flipping the entire narrative upside down. And her first move? Well, it involved a little envelope and a very big number. It arrived 2 days later, delivered by certified mail and addressed to Janelle Brown. Not in Robyn's handwriting, not in Cody's, but from a Salt Lake City law firm neither woman had heard of before. Janelle opened it at her kitchen counter, Christine watching from across the room. Inside was a single-page letter, polite, sterile, but what it contained made Christine gasp out loud. Robyn had offered a settlement, a formal attempt to resolve financial misunderstandings without further conflict in exchange for a signed mutual non-disclosure agreement, and the amount? $30,000. $30,000 to make the spa saga disappear, to bury every invoice, silence every screenshot, and essentially buy their silence. Janelle blinked. "Is she serious?" Christine asked, gripping the letter. "She thinks she can bribe us like this is hush money?" And that's exactly what it felt like. A payoff, not an apology, not accountability, just hush. The letter included boilerplate legal language about emotional hardship, subjective interpretations of financial entitlements, and a line that made Janelle's stomach churn. Ms. Sullivan Brown has historically carried the emotional weight of multiple households and acted as the stabilizing force during periods of family dissolution. In other words, Robyn wasn't backing down, she was doubling down, painting herself as the martyr, the glue, the unsung heroine, who simply needed the occasional facial and full-body seaweed wrap to survive the strain. But Janelle wasn't fooled. Neither was Christine. $30,000 wasn't generosity, it was damage control. Because Robyn wasn't just trying to silence Janelle, she was trying to preempt the public fallout. The hashtags had already begun trending. Trust Fund Robyn, 12,000 to Tantra, Spagate. Fans were dissecting every frame of the last season, drawing connections between Robyn's glowing skin and the Brown family's dwindling savings. And once the internet got its teeth into something, no NDA in the world could stop that momentum. Christine was furious. "She thinks this is just about money," she said, pacing again. "But it's not. It's about respect. We all gave our lives to this family. We built it. We sacrificed. And now she's treating us like liabilities she can pay off and push away." Janelle nodded slowly, the letter still in her hands. "I think it's time we go public. Everything. No more protecting reputations, no more quiet phone calls." So that night they sat down together and filmed a video. Not an explosive, screaming expose, but a calm, measured, heart-piercing testimony. Janelle laid out the numbers. Christine laid out the timeline. They didn't name names, but they didn't have to. Anyone who'd been watching knew exactly where the pieces fell. And in closing, Janelle looked directly into the camera and said, "This isn't about blame. It's about truth. And women like us who gave everything deserve that truth." The video wasn't even up for 30 minutes before it hit over 100,000 views. Comment sections exploded with support, disbelief, and calls for TLC to release the full story. And behind the scenes, Robyn was scrambling. Because if her settlement offer had been an attempt to put out the fire, all it did was pour gasoline on the flames. But the real twist came not from the fans or even the production team, it came from an accountant. A very familiar one. The same man who'd been quietly handling the family's taxes for over a decade. He called Janelle that same night, his voice tense. "You need to see something," he said. "It's about the trust withdrawals, and it's bigger than the spa stuff." And with that, the scandal that had already rocked the Browns was about to erupt into something far more serious. Janelle barely slept that night. The accountant's voice had stuck in her mind, flat, tight, almost afraid to say more over the phone. "It's bigger than the spa stuff." That sentence played on a loop until morning. At sunrise, she was already dressed, car keys in hand, coffee in a to-go mug. Christine offered to come, but Janelle insisted on going alone. Something told her this wasn't going to be just numbers and line items. This was going to be a reckoning. She met the accountant at his small office just outside Flagstaff. He'd worked with the Browns for over 12 years. Quiet, discreet, loyal. He slid a folder across the table without making eye contact. "I shouldn't even be showing you this," he said. "But after everything you've said and the way that trust was amended, I feel a moral obligation." Janelle opened the folder slowly. Inside were 6 years' worth of withdrawal records, every expense tied to the Brown family expense trust, every check, every debit. It started out normal, utility bills, groceries, school fees. But then, starting about 4 years ago, the pattern changed. That's when the name R. Sullivan Brown began appearing not just occasionally, but consistently, and not for family-related expenses. No, this was personal spending. There were withdrawals marked educational consultant, but no one knew of any active school-age kids in Robyn's home needing one. There was a $9,000 furniture purchase for a reading room upgrade, a monthly payment of $1,500 for something listed only as wellness concierge, and most jarring of all, a one-time wire of $25,000 labeled Advanced Women's Retreat. Was this ever approved by the group? The accountant asked. Janelle just stared at the page, her lips pressed tight. No, she finally whispered, not a word. But it didn't stop there. The accountant turned his monitor toward her and clicked open a spreadsheet titled Trust Fund Allocation by Head of Household. It was color-coded, green for Cody, yellow for shared expenses, red for Robyn. And Robyn's red column wasn't just growing, it was dominating.
If that were to happen, if somehow we came in and bought the debt, we would make sure Mary got her share and Robyn and Cody could take what was left, because all the family money helped buy the house that Robyn's in and they have an extra lot there, so I feel like that's kind of fair. I will always pretty much want what's fair. And I feel like Mary has been treated very badly by Cody for years. And I just want to make sure that that doesn't carry forward into this property division.
Over the last 36 months, nearly 67% of all discretionary withdrawals had been authorized by Robyn or directly benefited her household. That's nearly 2/3 of every flexible dollar. While the other wives scrambled to cover rising costs, Robyn was quietly drawing funds for everything from designer curtains to private home security evaluations. One entry underlined twice, read, Family Cultural Preservation Consultant, $6,000. The accountant raised an eyebrow. I don't even know what that means. Janelle sat back, stunned. 67%, she said again, as if saying it aloud might help her believe it. No wonder the balance kept dipping. She asked one final question. Was Cody notified about any of this? The accountant hesitated. He was copied on the quarterly statements. Whether he actually read them, I can't say. But then he added something chilling. When I emailed about the amendment adding Robyn, he replied in all caps, make it happen. No follow-up, no explanation, just that. As Janelle walked out of the office, the weight of it all hit her. This wasn't just miscommunication. It wasn't even favoritism anymore. This was intentional mismanagement, deceit disguised as structure. And if 67% of their trust had been quietly drained over spa visits, curated retreats and designer home upgrades, then Robyn wasn't just overstepping. She was building an empire on their backs. And yet, when Janelle returned home and shared the findings with Christine, there was a surprising calm between them. She's too deep in to deny it now, Christine said. The numbers don't lie. Janelle agreed, but the question still hung in the air. What now? They could go to TLC, they could call a lawyer, they could go public again. But Robyn wasn't done. Because while Janelle had been meeting the accountant, Robyn had been filming her own tell-all. Sources say she brought her own camera crew, her own makeup artist, and insisted the network release her version first. And in it, she allegedly claims the trust was always meant to adapt, and that her spending was part of a larger vision for family legacy. Christine nearly choked on her tea. Legacy. Is that what we're calling this now? But no one was laughing because Robyn's version was coming. And the showdown wasn't just inevitable, it was being scheduled. Next up, the taping of the most controversial sit-down the franchise has ever attempted, and the wives weren't backing down. The sit-down was set for a Thursday, not just any Thursday, a full crew, multiple camera, TLC-sanctioned production day. The network had rented out a neutral Airbnb just outside town, trying to avoid any household turf wars. It was beige, bland, and beautifully staged. Fresh-cut flowers, neutral lighting, an emotional war zone disguised as a cozy living room. Christine arrived first, calm and collected in a soft green blouse that said, I'm done playing games. Janelle followed, paperwork tucked neatly into her leather purse. No dramatics, no dramatization, just two women who had spent decades keeping the peace, now ready to drop the truth, whether the cameras were ready or not. Then came Robyn, draped in cream and beige, her makeup flawless, tissues already tucked into her lap like she knew what was coming. Sources say she was briefed beforehand. She knew the documents would be mentioned. Cody wasn't there, not in person. He'd refused to sit in the same room until the women got their facts straight. But behind the scenes, his fingerprints were all over the episode. According to an insider, he helped Robyn prep her talking points the night before, coaching her on emotional phrasing, buzzwords, and how to look composed without sounding rehearsed. Spoiler alert, it didn't work. The moment the director cued sound, Christine leaned forward and did what fans have waited years to see. She didn't ask permission to speak. She opened by stating the numbers. Calmly, clearly, like a woman who had filed taxes, raised children, and waited too long to be silenced. 67% of discretionary trust spending has gone to your household, she said to Robyn. We've seen the paperwork, the spa bills, the off-menu charges, the platinum card. So the question isn't if you knew, it's why you never said a word. Robyn's eyes filled instantly. "I didn't realize that's how it looked," she whispered. "I thought we were all getting what we needed." She looked to Janelle for sympathy. None came. Janelle took a slow breath and said, "I've been behind on my rent, Robyn. My kids have been covering groceries. What part of that looked fair to you?" You could hear the crew's silence behind the cameras. It wasn't just tense, it was historic. Robyn tried to pivot, claimed the expenses were tied to emotional restoration, that she was prescribed healing modalities after years of compound trauma. But when Christine pulled out the folder and laid it on the table, the energy shifted. "This isn't trauma care," she said. "This is $500 aura mists. This is spa retreats. This is luxury spending masked as survival." What Robyn didn't expect, though, was the next reveal. Janelle had come armed with the accountant's spreadsheet, color-coded, labeled, confirmed, and when she slid it across the coffee table, Robyn didn't even reach for it. "I can't speak to this," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "I don't understand the numbers." Christine didn't miss a beat. "You didn't understand the numbers, but you understood how to book 2 massages a week on a trust that was meant to help all of us." The moment hung there, unflinching, unforgiving. The camera zoomed in on Robyn's face, makeup cracking just slightly under the heat of the truth. And still, no apology, no ownership. Just that hollow phrase again. "It wasn't my intention." By the end of the sit-down, it was clear to everyone, crew included, that the fracture was final. No reunion would fix it, no edits could soften it. And the fans? They were already flooding the forums with cries for accountability. But as the credits rolled on the raw footage, there was one more surprise to come. Because someone else, someone who'd stayed silent longer than anyone, had been watching the entire confrontation from a distance. And he had receipts of his own. It was Logan, Janelle's eldest son, the one who had always played peacemaker, the steady one, the calm presence in the storm. For years, he'd kept his distance from the cameras, from the chaos, from the drama that seemed to orbit his father and Robyn like a dark moon. But according to insiders close to the family, Logan had seen enough. And after watching the raw taping of the sit-down, which was quietly sent to him by one of the production crew members, he decided it was time to speak. Not in anger, not in revenge, but in clarity. Because Logan had receipts, and they weren't spa statements, they were bank transfers. It started with a voicemail. Janelle had just finished dinner when her phone buzzed. She didn't recognize the number, but the voice was unmistakable. "Hey Mom, it's Logan. I saw the footage. I think I have something you need to see." That was it. No elaboration, just facts. The next day, he drove down from Nevada and arrived at Janelle's home with a small black USB drive and a manila folder marked simply, "Statements, 2022 to 2024. Christine was already there. They sat in the living room like it was a family meeting, but this time, the truth belonged to the kids. Logan explained that a few years back, when he was still managing some of the digital infrastructure for the family accounts, mostly to help Janelle and Christine with bill pay and mobile banking, he began noticing a string of recurring transfers. Small at first, a few $100s here and there, marked emergency household funds, but then the amounts started growing. 4,000, 7,000, 11,000, and always the same destination, a private account in Robyn's name, separate from the shared trust. He didn't want to believe the worst. He assumed Cody must have authorized them, but when Logan casually mentioned one of the larger transfers to his dad in a phone call last year, Cody had snapped. "You don't need to worry about where that money's going. It's covered." That was enough to raise a red flag. So Logan began archiving the transactions, not because he planned to expose anyone, but because he knew someday someone would ask what happened to the family money. And now that day had come. As Janelle clicked through the PDF on Logan's drive, her jaw clenched. These weren't charges tied to wellness or groceries or tuition. These were luxury home goods, designer bedding, a hand-carved bedroom set from Italy, a sacred ambiance lighting system priced at over $12,000. There was even a payment to an interior stylist for energetic flow consultations. Christine rubbed her temples. She furnished her entire house like a spa retreat, on our dime, and Cody knew, but Logan shook his head. I think he knew some, not all. I think even he was being lied to or choosing not to look too closely. That's when Janelle made her decision. We take this to TLC, not to ambush, not to create drama, but because the viewers deserve the full story. And more importantly, so do we. Christine nodded. If Robyn wants to talk about legacy, let's show people what kind of legacy we were actually building. With real sacrifices, real work, real women. Within 48 hours, producers were back in contact. An extended episode was greenlit. The footage was already turning into something bigger, a reckoning. Not just for Robyn, but for everything the Sister Wives franchise had tried to sweep under the rug for years. And yet, amid the swirling storm, a deeper question lingered like smoke. If Robyn had gone this far to secure her comfort, what else had been rewritten behind closed doors? And the answer to that was about to drop in the most unexpected way of all. A porcelain doll, to be exact, tucked behind Robyn in the background of a quiet live stream she filmed just days after the Logan folder revelation. She was attempting to reframe the narrative, speaking gently to fans, thanking them for their patience and grace, while promising to focus on family healing, not blame. But eagle-eyed viewers weren't listening to the platitudes, they were looking behind her. On a high shelf above her right shoulder sat a pale blue Victorian-style doll, encased in glass. It lasted maybe 2 seconds in the frame before the camera panned away, but it was long enough. Long enough for a Reddit user with a memory like a steel trap to pull up a screenshot from an episode nearly a decade old, where Robyn tearfully told Mary and Janelle that she'd sold off her most precious collection to help cover the family's expenses during a tough financial winter. They were heirlooms, she said at the time, part of my childhood. I didn't want to let them go, but family comes first. It was a moment meant to convey sacrifice, devotion, unity. But now, that very same doll, the one she claimed to have sold off for good, was sitting on a custom-lit display shelf, backlit, pristine, and clearly never parted with at all. The fan forums exploded. #Dollgate was born overnight. TikTok detectives broke down the live stream frame by frame, and suddenly it wasn't just about money, it was about manipulation. Viewers who had once sympathized with Robyn's on-camera tears were now questioning every emotional arc, every sacrifice, every whispered plea for understanding. Because if she'd lied about selling the dolls, what else had been manufactured? The narrative, the trauma, the entire poor Robyn persona? Janelle saw the clips. Christine did too. They didn't gloat, they didn't post, but privately, the silence between them said everything. It wasn't about dolls, it was about trust. And now, that trust was shattered beyond repair, not just between the wives, but between the audience and the story they'd been sold for years. TLC moved quickly. The network rushed post-production on a special titled Behind the Statement, The True Cost of Trust. It featured Janelle, Christine, and even Logan, sharing their findings, their heartbreak, and their refusal to stay silent. And while Robyn and Cody declined to appear in the extended cut, producers confirmed they were offered multiple chances to respond and passed every time. By the time the special aired, the fallout was seismic. Fans called for full transparency, for Cody to be held accountable, for Robyn to face the numbers on live television. But inside the Brown family, the dust was still settling. Janelle and Christine had emerged from the fire, not just intact, but stronger, wiser, and finally fully free. And Robyn, whether she realized it or not, her platinum card empire had crumbled under the weight of its own illusion. Because this time, the receipts weren't metaphorical, they were printed, documented, and shared for the world to see. So now we want to hear from you. Do you think Robyn's spa spending and luxury lifestyle should be grounds for legal accountability? And has your view of the sister-wives dynamic changed after seeing who actually controlled the money? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more truths the cameras couldn't cover before. The next video on your screen is waiting. And trust me, you won't want to miss it.